Our speaker this morning is Mr. Baum. Mr. Baum serves as the Dean of Students and the Karl Knobloch Instructor of Economics, and he coaches girls ice hockey. Mr. Baum.
When Nikita Khrushchev was forced out as leader of the Soviet Union many years ago, he sat down and wrote 2 letters to his successor, Leonid Brezhnev. Just as the transition of power was happening, Khrushchev gave the new leader, Brezhnev, the 2 letters and told him, when you get yourself into a pickle that you can't get out of, open the first letter. And when you get yourself into another pickle you can't get out of, open the second letter. So soon enough, Brezhnev found himself in a difficult situation and he opened the first letter. It said, blame everything on me. So he blamed Khrushchev for everything and it worked. The media got off his back and got out of the situation. Eventually he got himself into a second tough spot and he's just like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So he opened the second letter and it said, sit down, write 2 letters. About 11 years ago, I decided to stop eating meat for a day. I was going through a tough time. I'd lost an important relationship. I was feeling alone. I knew I couldn't go on like that. So I made a random change just for that day. I didn't talk it over with others. I didn't really think about it myself. I didn't and still don't have any problem with meat, even though I've come to learn that actually the world's reliance on cows is causing for a significant portion of the destruction to the natural environment. All of that farting from the cows, it really adds up. Anyways, I didn't delete meat that day to help the environment, nor was I trying to eat healthier. I just made a random choice just for that day. And then I decided the day after, I'll just extend it for that day. There's this movie called Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, in which 2 people who have broken up seek a treatment that allows them each to forget one another. They get hooked up to a machine and the machine deletes all of the memories of the person that they're trying to forget. It's an incredible concept, a medical treatment that allows us specifically to forget just one person. That would make it a lot easier to move on from failed relationships and eliminate those most miserable moments and people from our lives that cause the most pain. It's like a vaccine that cures trauma. Anything bad that happens, just hook up to the machine and let the technology remove all that emotional pain. The day Martin Luther King was shot and killed, a candidate for president, Robert Kennedy, the younger brother of John F. Kennedy, was on a planned campaign stop in Indianapolis, Indiana. The speech was given outdoors in the downtown area, very highly populated, and most of the attendees had actually not heard the news that Martin Luther King had been shot and killed. There wasn't like a power outage or anything that prevented people from hearing the news. It was just a different time in 1968 when news traveled much, much slower. So many of the residents actually heard what happened that night from Kennedy. They were expecting to hear about his campaign promises, but of course, none of those campaign promises were mentioned. Now tasked with informing the crowd, mostly of Black residents, that the most iconic and important leader of civil rights that the country had ever had been assassinated just hours earlier, Kennedy just ad-libbed. He said, in this difficult day, in this difficult time for the United States, it's perhaps well to ask what kind of a nation we are and what direction we want to move in. For those of you who are Black, considering the evidence is that there were white people responsible for killing King today, you understandably would be filled with bitterness, with hatred, and a desire for revenge. We can move in that direction as a country in greater polarization, Black people amongst Black, white people amongst white, filled with hatred toward one another. Or we can make an effort, as Martin Luther King did, to understand and to comprehend and to replace that violence, that stain of bloodshed that has spread across our land with an effort to understand with compassion and with love. For those of you who are Black and are tempted to be filled with hatred and distrust at the injustice of such an act against all white people, I can only say I feel the same in my own heart because I had a member of my family killed, my brother, and he was killed by a white man. But we have to make an effort in the United States. We have to make an effort to understand and go beyond these rather difficult times. The economist Alfred Marshall theorized on the concept of marginalism. The marginalist principle is that humans actually make decisions incrementally. We consciously keep score of when we are too full to eat anymore. The first slice we eat probably brings the most satisfaction. But just because the second slice is not quite as wonderful, We still eat it if we feel like there's still room, like if we're still hungry. So we eat and eat and eat until can't eat anymore. It's just a feeling that you're full. When you run or lift, there is a tipping point that signals it's time to stop, if we listen. There's this incredible sequence early on in the iconic show, The West Wing. An attack on American soldiers takes place in Israel, and the president comes together with his military advisors to strategize on a military response. The president is presented with several options, all of which explained as being appropriate and being proportionate responses to those who perpetrated the attack. The president does not have military experience and had a personal relationship with one of the victims from the terrorist attack. So he's really struggling to understand an appropriate path forward. He frustratingly asks his advisors, what is the virtue of a proportionate response? Why is it good? Why not just blow the terrorists off the face of the planet? Why is it right or good to not just destroy the enemy when having the capacity to do so, especially when we feel like we're responding to their provocation? What is the tipping point for writing those two letters? What's the moment we decide to quit? What's the last straw when we decide it's time to break up with our significant other? How do we process disappointment? How do we get over things? Do we even get over things? Is it possible to fully move on? Well, there is no actual way to eliminate a person or set of memories. And even if we could selectively delete a memory like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, if we could, is that even helpful to do? This is where the common term cancel culture enters into prominence. Anytime a mistake is made, every time there's some discomfort, there's no actual way to jump to the last page, even if we really want to, because processing emotions is a process. So trying to block another person, quitting when you don't get what you want, it's not only an impossible path, but it's actually the wrong path, even if it were possible, because your mind and your heart are not supposed to forget even those absolute worst moments. When you find yourself in hell, there's really just two choices. You can stay there or you can try to leave. Yet, even if and when you get out, you still will remember what happened in the first place. My first day as Dean of Students, 5 years and 1 month ago today, we had to send a student home for disciplinary reasons. Yeah, my first day. I still think about it all the time. Not because I think it was the wrong decision, but rather because a lot of us cared about that young man then, and a lot of us care about him now. We wanted him to succeed then, and even though he didn't continue to be a student at the school, we want him to succeed now. The faculty are not robots. We're not perfect. School's not perfect. When we call you to the carpet of accountability, we believe strongly that it's an honor to interact in those most difficult moments when we try to reflect and when we try to seek penance and ultimately to find peace. But that happens one step at a time. You're going to get a B today, maybe on your math test or on an English essay. Maybe you're not going to get enough playing time in the football game or the field hockey game. Maybe you're not going to get the lead role in the play. What happens next? Even if a student can't go to the school, not nothing, it doesn't end there. That carpet of accountability is not one you have to walk alone, but it is still one you have to walk. And you can only walk one step at a time. The Robert Kennedy speech on that fateful night included the following, quoting his favorite poet, Aeschylus, who wrote, "In our sleep, pain which cannot forget falls drop by drop upon the heart until, in our own despair, against our will, comes wisdom through the awful grace of God." The word God, as you all know already from when I spoke to you earlier in the year, the word God is the source of the Old English word good, and that the holiness of goodness is the virtue of a proportional response. It is the very essence of our being. Making choices, even big choices, but making those choices slowly and incrementally, one step at a time. Recognizing process and patience as inherent to achieving whatever it is that you seek to achieve. That's Marshall's marginalism. It's my vegetarianism. It's been 11 years since I made that one-day commitment to not eating meat. In my mind, I think of that as a choice I make each and every day to constantly renew that commitment. That is 4,057 times. This idea is why alcoholics refer to themselves as recovering alcoholics. Even after they've been sober for decades, they are never fully recovered from something that biologically and psychologically takes a continuously renewed commitment. Therefore, it's not so simple to just open an envelope for a clear solution of blame or of self-resignation. And it's not as simple to just eliminate another from one's memory. So if you hurt someone recently, if you've made mistakes, if you've disappointed another person, or if you're the student who we sent home a few years ago, I promise that there is a process on which you can embark that ends in restoration and forgiveness and peace. It's a long road and you can't skip steps. Recovering alcoholic will tell you, you cannot skip any of those 12 steps. And if you relapse, you have to go right back to the start. You have to start by forgiving yourself. You can't do that by trying to forget what happened or by simply just moving on. You can't do that by blaming someone else. You can't do that by quitting. You certainly can't do that with any one moment or action, and you can't do that by opening a letter. Kennedy closed his speech that night in Indianapolis by saying, "Let us dedicate ourselves to what the Greeks wrote so many years ago, to tame the savageness of humanity and make gentle the life of this world. Let us dedicate ourselves to that and say a prayer for our country and a prayer for our people." Then after the speech concluded, something really shocking happened. People just went home. Indianapolis, in fact, was one of just a handful of major American cities that did not see violence and destruction that night. It's not as if those people who heard the speech were any less upset about the news they received. It's not as if they heard the news and just forgot. It's not as if they heard the news and just forgave those who were responsible. So what was the difference? The first letter Brezhnev opens that blames others may seem like an easy fix. And the second letter that signals the time to quit might feel like the only option at the time. It's not, because neither option is incremental and neither option is proportionate. But there is still a letter to write and a letter to read. It's just not a letter that you write to your successor. This letter we all have to write, but you're not giving it to somebody else. You keep it and read it yourself. It's not a prayer, but it probably functions as one. And I'll ask that you stand for my own letter that I will read to you, but after I finish, please don't clap, because in this holy space, we have to recognize that holiness is not a performance, and holiness is not found because of a religious symbol or because of words carved in stone. Holiness derives because people share spaces, physical, spiritual, or otherwise. For there are, of course, many not in this chapel at this moment, and we won't have everybody in this chapel physically at any point this year. But the people not here absolutely participate in something far more than a chapel. They participate in the construction of a cathedral of goodness, where we seek, as the people of Indianapolis did on April 4th, we seek peace. We've learned well that physical space can and must be transcended by what we share, not through clapping, but by acting and by listening and by respecting, and yes, by endeavoring down the path to seek and find peace and happiness. One person at a time, one day at a time, on the basis of the letter that we have to write ourselves. So I ask you to please rise and bow your head if that's your tradition. Yeah, go ahead. Dear self, the world is wonderful, but the world is not perfect. When I get a bad grade or when I go through a breakup or have a fight with a friend, I don't need to overreact. I don't just blame others, but rather I must first look within to myself. I don't cancel others and I don't cancel myself. Because when I find myself in hell, there's just one option: keep going. Because big things are just lots of small things added together slowly, good and bad, whether it be cows farting or failed relationships or a person standing on the moon. When we see something big, it's actually just lots of small. The world may not be perfect and my life may not be perfect, but I'm committed to trying my best to make it perfect for myself and for others, proportionately, one relationship at a time, 1 hour at a time, and not just when things are easy, but especially when they are hard. I'll strive to understand and love, even when it is easiest to reject and to hate. For I am flawed, and we are all flawed. I accept those realities, even if I will seek perfection, and I will forever search for whatsoever things are true. Sincerely, myself.